So share the screen. So we have a few things to discuss. I think it's a very important thing. The urgent thing is we really need to standardize, approve the TCK process. So it's so here I think we should use this meeting to go through the TCK process. Let me view it. So it's I think it's kind of the most of the things are directly copied from Jakarta EE TCK, and so it's originally David copied the lift the Jakarta TCK process, and then because we don't have the trademark program, so I went ahead to delete a lot of references about the logo and also the trademark and etc. Also clarify where to file the CCR and etc. So that's a pretty much a change we made. So is one like a remaining update, which about how to prove that the certification. So it's because it's we have a few options. Is the approved by laser consensus. So this is the existing like a Jakarta approval process. So the other one is Jakarta, because the Jakarta in the spec, because the committer is belong to a particular spec or platform spec and etc. Not too many committers. I think it's and then in Jakarta TCK process is that okay, you need to have all the committers, the platform committer to approve. So with that is is only a few committers, but in MicroProfile we don't have this separation about committers. We have about I think is 52 or something committers. So it's what people think. Basically, I made a proposal. We can say is approved by at least 2 of the committers. And these committers must not work for the same company where the certification request is associated with. So I'm wondering what other people think. This is a kind of open discussion. So we need to finalize this, and then we can approve can start a ballot. Any comments?
Yeah, another option would be at least 2 steering committee members. They automatically need to be distributed about 2 different organizations.
So is another option, or is instead of the option, the second option? So we have we could add another option. So basically, is one of the option is this needs belong to this one. I will just indent this one. So this is the first option. So this is the second option. So are you saying add another option or replace this option?
I think you need to be careful, right? Is this job the responsibility of the project, the open source project, right, which are the committers, or is it responsibility of the working group, which is separate from the project, right? Normally these things are the responsibility of the project. The working group's responsible just making sure the project is operating correctly.
So this is for the certification.
Right, I understand that, but the committers are the experts. They're the technical people. The working group is the governance.
Yeah, I think it's the working group. They because this one is as long as kind of you demonstrate you pass all the TCKs and etc. Is no direct domain knowledge required. I think that's workable.
Right, but I guess my point would be this should be the responsibility of the project. And if the working group thinks the project is drunk and disorderly, they can step in and fix things, but you don't want to necessarily mix the two.
Right, I see what you mean. So it's kind of indicator EE, they didn't put in the working group in. So they kind of just have the kind of the committers.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Why should it be different here, right? Because the committers have made all the code and prepared everything, and they can sign off on it, I guess. But the question is then, like you said, does it matter if the committers are from the same company, quote unquote? Does it matter in this context?
Right. So you are even thinking is maybe just at least two of the committers, and then delete this bullet point.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenging part, right? Is that if you're basically are imposing rules that aren't necessarily anywhere else in an open source project.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. So I just trying to say I'm biased. However, I think we all operate in the open source. We are pretty much is kind of the nothing to hide, right? Yeah,
So,
I agree. I think I can delete the third one, this bullet point, and then we just go with this.
How about change that to a recommendation instead of must?
Oh, okay. So
that is a good idea.
Yeah, that's
why.
great
So
idea.
I was thinking if it's not a requirement, and we remove the line and make it a recommendation. If it works on other projects like Jakarta EE, but also vendors are or committers from vendors are voting and are not. If it works there, why shouldn't it work here? I was thinking it could create maybe an unfair balance if only, for example, IBM committers are voting. It doesn't have to mean anything, but as you look through the history, you may see this pattern and then think, hey, this is something we must look into or something, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a problem. So if you don't think it is, I think we should make it a recommendation and see what happens.
Right.
So change the must to a should.
Yeah.
Is it should or just say is recommended?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about the official like spec type language, and usually you have must, should, may. You know, should not or may not. I don't know if those are technically requirement verbiage.
Right.
I'm not going to, be a stickler over it. I was just trying to fire requirements terminology. Should not. Here we go.
No.
So I'm just digging through here. It does say per ed, not recommended.
Or
Ed might.
or we could say it is recommended the committers, the two committers, not to work for the same company with the certificate request is associated with.
Yeah, we should use the weave in should not or not recommended in there.
Not recommended. Okay. Or should not. Okay. So with that, I think is kind of we can start a ballot. What do people think?
We have gone over it a few times now, so I think it should be ready if we make this additional change that we have now come up with.
Okay, that's okay. That's good. And then we can for the ballot, we just have the 7 days, right, for this process, right? We just open. It just I mean, the ballot will only run for 7 days, so people can vote.
Yeah, that is our process.
Okay. Okay then. So that's good. So it's in this case, after I have done that change, yeah, I will hopefully one of you can review it. Edwin, I can pin you because you reviewed it before. And then we'll merge the PR and then go through the ballot. Okay, so that's good. So next one is the July release. So it's so far I think it's kind of the we need to kind of also I think we should just finalize, or maybe it's kind of it's put some like a plan review or release review kind of the holder there. So it's kind of for the spec of plan to do the release, plan to do an update in and then pull into the July release. So it's like a MicroProfile telemetry. So hopefully next week we'll be able to get the report done, and then hopefully we can release the 1.0 version like before July. And then we can remove the open tracing, and then add the telemetry. And then the next thing is metrics. So I know metrics has a plan, MicroProfile metrics. So the other thing is the Open API. Open API is hopefully we are going to have a call to go through the issue. The other thing is because Open API has a plan to integrate with beam validation. So that is in our program plan for 2022. Actually, it was in 2021, but we really need to get it worked on the 2022. I also heard that JWT is going to do a major release. Roberto, is that still the case?
I have no idea about it. That's the first time I'm hearing about it. I'm not sure if anyone else is working on that. At least not myself.
Right. Okay. In that case, you need to double check with the team. You need to also look at the JWT. So it's the other thing is kind of the GraphQL. So this is a discussion point. What do people think to add the GraphQL to platform release? So by the way, GraphQL 2.0 will be released soon. So which is about Jakarta EE 9.1 alignment. So what people think about kind of the bring this? This is another thing in our like a program plan. Review the standalone specs.
Yeah, I have maybe a little bit of a background question there, because I was not really involved in the past when we have added standalone specifications to the platform. So can you maybe enlighten me on the reasons were to actually move it to the platform and not leave it as a standalone? Because like I said, you can add GraphQL to the platform, but what's the reason? What value would it bring?
Yeah, so in the past, because like for the new specs, I think from the reactive stream operators and reactive messaging, because we create some spec, and then at that time we thought, okay, maybe this spec I need to kind of stay standalone for some time and to wait for some feedback from customer to see whether it will stick. Like it seems, I don't know, it seems GraphQL gain a lot of kind of attraction. So in that case, like we review the standalone specs periodically, and if they are kind of good and stable, and we add to the platform release so that it works kind of in a similar way as the other component specs in the platform release. At this moment, if you use GraphQL, you have to add the dependencies yourself instead of just using such as MicroProfile 5 or something like that.
Yeah, so if the end users want it and the vendors are willing to implement it to stay up to date with the latest platform, MicroProfile platform releases and implement it, then I should say there's no reason not to do it. But if that all aligns, I say go for it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would like to learn. I mean, you mentioned that you're seeing like users wanting it. What is the what are you using to back that claim? Because I have a completely opposite view on that.
So it's like I know the people like complain saying, okay, they all like not part of the platform release, and then they go through the different cycle, and then you have to add these dependencies, and they just feel like it's a second class citizen. So like I know Open Liberty, Wildfly, Quarkus, and Halliday, they all support GraphQL. So it's and also it's kind of it's being used. It's not like it's not useful.
Yeah, but that's the point. So from the numbers that I've been getting from Wildfly and Quarkus, GraphQL is not used that much. I mean, yeah, there are a few people using it, but for instance, if you compare it to reactive messaging, is a huge difference. So yeah, I will be more willingly to put reactive messaging into the platform spec than GraphQL. I mean, there is no. I mean, I think we should use some actual numbers, right? And I mean, I'm talking with from what I see, so maybe we can try to do a query to the community, but I see no reason to include GraphQL and leave reactive messaging out. I mean, for me, reactive messaging will be something that should be included first, and then GraphQL, just by the number of usage that we have, at least for what we've seen. We get way more traction on the reactive messaging side than GraphQL, at least.
Yeah, that's from probably Quarkus' point of view. From Liberty is the opposite.
It's not only on Quarkus, it's also Wildfly. So for instance, even Wildfly, we were obligated in a sense to actually include reactive messaging as part of the standard Wildfly distribution. It's not something that you have to set up on the side because people were asking for that so much. But on GraphQL, it was never required, or it was never like a thing.
But would maybe these numbers of adoption increase when we include it in the platform? And if it's already there as a standalone implementation?
Yeah, but I mean, you could do the same. I mean, I think that's not an argument if you're saying that the numbers of adoption will rise if you put in the platform, because reactive messaging was not on the platform and the numbers of adoption just skyrocketed. Is not the problem of the platform. If something is useful, people will use it. And I mean, GraphQL, I understand. I still believe it's just like a niche platform or technology, because I mean, some people use it, but it's not like a mandatory thing to develop an application.
If if we have this kind of thing, is kind of it's difficult to get the standalone into the platform. So there's no like I mean entry criteria. The other thing I can say, okay, in Liberty we don't get much usage on reactive messaging. We at the moment we haven't done much investment on the reactive messaging. The other thing is the reactive messaging has dependency on the reactive stream operators. I know is a Quarkus. I know it's reactive stream operators. Is I think from what Clement said is going to be deprecated. So that's a lot. Need some major work, and for that. So I don't.
No, I mean I mean that indication just say that we're not ready to make a decision. I mean, I'm telling you that I have different data and you have different data from me. So yeah. We need to clarify this without just making a decision and putting on the platform, and probably hear from the other vendors, because for instance, as far as I know, Tommy Tribe, I think they're not here, but they don't have a GraphQL implementation. So they're gonna have to implement it and they may not want to do it. I'm not sure about Payara, right? So putting things on the platform is not only about popularity or usage, it's also about vendors being able to support it and implement it, right?
Yeah, so I think, Roberto, you don't want to implement it because Red Hat's perspective is not there. I think
sorry, you're cutting up. I can't hear you properly.
Sorry. Okay, is it better?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Yeah. So I understand your point from Red Hat perspective, but I think we first need to include all the partners, the vendors, and see what they think and make a decision, right? And also
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Also ask the GraphQL committers themselves. What do they want? Do they want it in the platform or not?
Yeah, I think that has some strategic aspect too, because do we thinking of having MicroProfile being a MicroProfile, like a basic core, and add things that are necessary for specific projects? Or do we want to have something like a full profile, which supports a lot of features, but maybe in specific applications, only a few of these technologies are actually used?
So this is like a Jakarta EE platform release and web profile. So I think this is again is kind of the basically brought this up, is kind of open the door to discuss what we want to do with the standalone spec. This also is the kind of the chicken egg situation with the standalone spec. If it stays standalone and like the implementers probably will just don't have the urge to implement it. So basically, again said, okay, that's a standalone. I want to just support MicroProfile for the 6. So I just put that on hold. So I think is the other kind of advantage being in the platform release is kind of encourage the implementers to implement the updated version of the component spec.
You're right, Emily, but I think what would be helpful to do these decisions is getting information about which vendor is supporting which specification, especially the ones that are not part of the platform yet, and get some user feedback about the usage of these applications from all the vendors, if they have that data. And then it might be easier to make a decision on that. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds reasonable. I think it's kind of the later on we can revisit our kind of the program plan, how to handle it.
Well,
The
to add, I
threat-
think that you should really define, we should really need to define a process on how these, I mean, we were discussing, for instance, on how to deprecate stuff. Here is something similar, but on the other way around. So we need to define, I mean, we cannot just make a decision just because, or just because we think that it might be useful or whatever. There needs to be objective criteria on how or why a standalone specification moves to the platform.
Yeah,
But
that's sorry.
One
go ahead.
rule we do have, so to this point, and I have to go look to see if and where it's documented, but we had agreed, I don't know, 2019-ish, that whenever there's a new specification, it can't be a part of the platform until it's had at least one release in a spec as a standalone. Right, so you couldn't go straight from 0 to platform spec. There had to be at least one intermediate release, even if it's dot release, before it was added to the spec. Now, GraphQL meets that criteria, but all I'm saying is that we do have kind of a little bit of history here in discussing this, and I think, you know, formalizing a bit may not be a bad idea.
Yeah, so this is again is kind of the, anyway, we have our program plan about discussing the standalone releases. Maybe we can use this use that program plan, the atom as a something we can work out process.
Yeah, on the other hand, MicroProfile telemetry doesn't fulfill that rule. It's just added to the platform.
So no, is a need to be released before the July release. So hopefully, if we release in May, like 1.0, and then in the July release, and you can take in the telemetry, MicroProfile telemetry.
And in telemetry is also replacing tracing.
Yeah, that's a special.
It's a little bit, yeah, but it's good to know at least we'll have a release out before it ends up in the platform spec.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good discussion here. So in like in here in the this is in the trees, kind of the the GraphQL, and we'll do an 2.0 release. That's about alignment and reactive. So both this one, fix the. So both this one will do the kind of the decoder in alignment. Maybe you should just insert a column. If we say decoder E 9.1, where's the cross?
It's the S with the line through it next to italic. Keep going to the right. There you go. Left one.
Oh, this one. I was thinking is that dollar sign. Thank you. Okay.
Do we want to have a 9.1 alignment or a EE10 alignment?
No,
Because
this is
10
for the standalone release. They are not even
Okay.
aligned with 9.1 yet. Yeah, so we need to track that. So at least that track. So it's in July. So we do at least we are hoping maybe this one, just put a question mark there. Hopefully this one has 3.1. So this one will be removed. And this one will be added. Hopefully, that's the kind of the plan.
Can you put
Removed
down
from the platform, right?
Yeah, July release. Yes, John.
Sorry, and what I should do, this is a good point that Jan brings up. But before I get there, can you put down under the Jakarta alignment like a time frame Q1, Q2? No, not necessarily up there. It might be a spec by spec basis.
Oh, here, okay. I think this one can go to Q1. So reactive messaging, no, it's February. I think this, no, they have a candidate, release candidate. Maybe I think it's Q1 should be achievable. Similarly. So for GraphQL, I know Open Liberty can be used for the CCR. For the reactive messaging, I think reactive stream operators, maybe it's Halliden. I don't know, I think it's David from Halliden.
His name is Daniel.
Oh, Daniel. So Dimitri, do you think Daniel is going to do the CCR for this one?
I don't know. I need to ask him. I know that he is actively working on that, and it looks like there is some progress there. So possibly yes.
Okay, so that's very possible will be Q1, because Clement said Smallray won't do a release for this one. And for the reactive messaging, either Smallray or Halliden can do the CCR. Not.
Is that really Jakarta 9.1 alignment though? You have a column title there.
Yes. Oh, what's your question, John? This is about 9.1 alignment.
Okay, I wasn't sure which APIs that aligns with.
Emily, the thing is that Hilidon release, which includes reactive messaging and reactive stream operators, this version will be released later than Q1. Sorry, right? So I need to talk with Daniel about kind of what we can do with that, right? So we may release kind of a milestone version which will include the implementation and use it as a compatible implementation for that. I think it's not an issue, right? But I need a confirmation. Okay.
Another thing to ask, the July release should be a minor release.
July release. Sorry, I just lost. I just yeah, my internet was not good. Let me see. So the July release is a major release because we are going to remove the open tracing from
Yeah,
the
then I
stack.
will change the headline.
Headline for which one?
July release.
Of this is here.
Like
Yeah,
that.
that's better.
And I think, in my opinion, we should do another release of context propagation. I know there is a context propagation with Jakarta support, but that was done as a minor version. And I think that's confusing. We should do it as a major version.
So Nathan, are you on the call, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm on the call.
Yeah, can you comment?
To me, that doesn't seem worthwhile. Given that there aren't any changes in it and that we had this discussion last summer about which version to use and had decided on the 1.3 version.
Yeah, but I mean, you look into all releases and all of them updated their major version. So it does seem, I don't know, inconsistent that there is one specification.
I
that just-
believe the others had a reason to do it in that they were actually making a breaking change because they actually consumed the Jakarta API, whereas we did not.
You did not. So you did not got affected by the namespace change.
Yeah, the only thing we had to do was update our TCK, which runs, run some stuff with Jakarta. But the specification itself did not get affected.
I think since it's being released, it will be confusing to do another major release with no other change.
Yeah, I would agree, because when we already have a 1.2 release that's the same as our 1.3 release from a functionality standpoint, and we would be putting out a 2.0 release that would again be identical to those two other releases. It just seems like a lot of duplication. And then people are really wondering what's different, what changed. The answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but bumping versions is not like a big deal. Like all projects do it all the time. It's just that it makes like a consistent, clear cut, like everyone else. It's just, I mean, because you may be saying that, and I understand. Okay, there were no changes on major changes, so you only bump as a minor. But I have people on my team that they thought that there was no context propagation release because they were looking into the major version and they just saw, oh, there is no major version of context propagation, so they haven't released yet, right?
Would a good compromise be that the next time we make any changes to the specification, we just bump it to a major release?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't know when that's going to happen, and we need it right now. I mean, we can use the 1.3, but I mean, of course, after you explain that to people, they'll use it, but still. Well, we don't know when the next major is going to come. It may only come after the summer, and you're going to have the same confusion until then.
Yeah, I think it's just about education thing. So Nathan, do you have a plan to do a future release, new features being added or something like that?
I'm sure there will be. We just don't know what would go in it yet.
Is the weekly meeting still happening?
Monthly.
Or monthly?
Sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't.
Right. I think maybe it's kind of could add something, kind of the update. I kind of think is just literally do a release, major release with no apparent reason is confusing. It's basically you say 1.3.
Well, do you think the current situation is better?
What do you think?
I've never actually seen anyone get confused. It's the first I've heard of anyone being confused by the 1.3.
I mean, sure,
Yeah.
for people that are currently on par on what's happening, sure, but I mean, you look into all the specifications, you see all of them have major bumps, and then you see one that doesn't. So when you look into all the versions of MicroProfile, then I'll just assume there was nothing updated over there, right?
It doesn't depend about sort of magically handle new versions for you, at least alert you with pull requests.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other thing is kind of have to look at case by case, as Nathan explained, because it doesn't need a major version bump.
Right. I mean, it'd be better to try.
I mean, the spec may not need a major version bump, but the implementation does need a major version bump, right? Because the TCK also has updated to Jakarta, which I believe that should be more than enough to warrant a major version bump. Now, if this is not an issue for everyone, then it's okay. I mean, for me, it's not consistent, right? If this is the current situation, then we have to decide how we bump the major and the minor versions, right? Because right now it just seems inconsistent.
I think it's for the Jakarta alignment. So it's basically is if we, I think is if the spec import Java X, so that's a major bump.
I think that that it should be clear, right? There is, so this version now aligns with Jakarta. There is a major, I mean, look into something, right? So if context propagation or any other spec now targets Jakarta 9 and before it was targeting Jakarta 8, that should warrant a major release bump always. Because
Yeah,
Jakarta also updated their major. So why we only updated our minor?
Well, I guess when you say the spec is updated to require a different version of Jakarta, is that actually reflected in the semantics or signatures of the API, or is that just a policy statement for the purposes of support?
It's a policy statement. I mean, it's both, right? I mean,
well,
even if there is no signature changes, it is good practice for you to also bump the major version in that particular case.
Well, I guess that's the debatable point, right?
Yeah, but there is a breaking change, not with the spec API of the document, but with the TCK. You cannot run that on an earlier version. That I think is
right, but part of what you're communicating with the versioning is to the applications built against the API. And by the implication of a major change, you're telling all the applications that they're facing substantive work to upgrade to the new API. When if the only real difference is the fact that the API now runs on a different version of the platform, that doesn't mean that my application has to change one iota.
Yeah, but it's not only, sorry, it's not only for the application users a change, which is not in that case, but it is for the implementers and major release.
I'll give you an example, right? So you were saying, well, you get the pull request, right? But I don't expect when I get the minor version pull request to break my implementation or my app, right? Because minor versions are usually like fixes or bugs, or maybe if they change, like they may make like a breaking API which is small that I have to update. But right now, if you get the pull request to update context propagation version with a minor version, it just breaks. And you have to go around and change all your application to update everything.
That isn't so. It doesn't break your application. It's the fact that your applications are using other Jakarta or Java E technologies.
Sure, but I mean,
breaks it, not the fact that context propagation used it.
Of course, but I mean, you have to update everything.
I think we need to be careful that our main audience needs to be the application developers. The fact that we are all implementers is sort of beside the point. And yes, we have to take certain care, but the real audience we're speaking to is the much larger audience of application developers. And so we need to not freak them out by going major all the time.
Yeah, but I'm speaking not for vendor or an implementer. I'm speaking from the user perspective. And if I have to update my platform and do a major release on my platform because I want to use that new version of the minor release spec, then it is a major release for me.
It isn't context propagation that makes you do that. It's other Jakarta technologies that you decided to use that makes you do that.
Right, exactly. So
you can take the 1.2 version and run it against Jakarta 9. It'll work fine. It's the same API.
But
Yeah,
it
so-
breaks the test of my implementation, and that I
Yeah,
have
but
to upgrade
again-
my implementation. And that's a major release
But again-
I have to do as a user too.
I think you need, again, we need to be careful, even though we're all implementers, not to be talking only to ourselves. We need to think about the applications when we talk about these things. We're communicating to a huge audience, which isn't in this room, because they're happy, they want us to do the right thing. And we need to be careful not to only think of ourselves.
Yeah, but BJ, to be honest, I'm speaking from the user perspective, and I want to have a validated a platform to use, and that could only be validated with a major release of the platform, because the TCK, which is linked to that specification, runs only on an upgraded platform. And
Right.
therefore, it's a major release. I think the problem here is we use one version, and that's different than in Jakarta and causes the confusion and the long discussion there. We have a spec document, an API, and a TCK with the same version. And that's one thing. And if one of these things requires a major release, because it breaks something for the user, then we should do a major release.
Right, but if I'm putting a bunch of ingredients in a cake and only one of the ingredients causes the cake version to change, I shouldn't change the version of all the other ingredients.
If they link together and belong together, the TCK, the API, and the spec document, then I have to. Otherwise, I only can handle that having different version for that, and then I lost the relation between these three parts.
But the application developer doesn't care about the TCK, he cares about the API.
Yeah, but at the end, he has to do a major release of his platform to use a validated.
Not necessarily.
Don't develop platforms, they get them from us, the implementers. And we have our responsibility to make sure that we do the right thing, but they just have an application. They're just using
No. You have to think about the whole stack. You have to decide which operating system, which orchestration technology, the Java SE version, the platform on top, and then the application. And if one part breaks, you have a lot more work than having only a minor release, which is most, or should be most in the cases, only a little bit of configuration and updating, and no additional work to do. So I understand Roberto's concerns.
Aren't you contradicting yourself when you say that users want us to do the right thing, but then you say that we provide them their stuff, so they shouldn't even care on what version we deliver to them?
Right, but then that argument says, well, then everything should just all be in lockstep, the same version number. Everything.
Sure, I mean, exactly.
But
it's just that looking into all of this, I mean, we are not. I will agree with you if we were doing like a change on the API or whatever. But this is a namespace change on Jakarta, even though there is no package change directly on context propagation. I think there is a good practice, because there is this drawing the line thing where JavaX not going to work anymore, and now it changed to Jakarta, so it becomes clear, right? So you see everyone that's putting Jakarta compatible stuff doing major versions, even if they don't change their code.
But you are changing their code, because you force them to change the APIs that they call. They have new names.
Well, you're saying on context propagation, you're saying that they don't have to change anything. But what I'm saying is other APIs that haven't required to change their code, they're just changing it to major versions anyway, because they have dependencies to other major versions that require Jakarta, right?
Right, if those names show up in the semantics of the API, then yes, that is a big change. I don't know the specific situation here, and maybe it
sure,
is.
But I mean, it's just I just feel, I mean, I don't think we're not going to agree on this, so we can just carry on. I just think that for me, this is inconsistent, right?
Yeah. So So I think we have, yeah, as you say, we have discussed for a long time. So how about this? It's like maybe it's I mean, you have plenty of issues to work on the context propagation. How about like add some other like change and then do a release? Basically address some issues. Basically, you actively work on some issues and then do a release soon.
I can bring that up on the,
as a major release. Huh?
I can bring that up with the spec group and
Yeah,
see
yeah.
what they think about the version. I mean, obviously we discussed it in the past, but now we've seen people actually that don't like the minor version. I can discuss with them if they have any issues they want to pull in and then put out a major version and see what they think about it.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so let's set on that. So and then I posted the July release candidate in the MicroProfile mailing list. I haven't heard anything, so we can agree on here. So what do people think about make a Java 11 as a minimum? So when we say as a minimum, is that we are going to change all of the spec, or we only change the kind of updated spec? So first thing first, do we want to make the Java 11 as a minimum?
I personally would align with Jakarta, the minimum.
Right. So at the moment, yeah, at the moment, the Jakarta minimum is kind of even in the Jakarta EE10, the spec have done the update. Basically, it's like a CDI. They have done like a major release. So they updated their compile version to be 11. So in this case, like we could do the similar thing, like the telemetry. So basically that will be the compile version will be Java 11. And also the Open API, they do an update and then compile version to be Java 11. So what I don't think we should go through all the other specs and then change the minimum compile version for no apparent reasons.
There is a reason, and that's a real pain. You cannot use the Maven release configuration without having a Java SE version that supports that feature. And yeah, when we allow lower Java versions like 8, then you cannot use these features. And I really would like to do and use that feature instead of configuring separate source and target versions.
But Jakarta, I mean, Jakarta has done this kind of thing. I think for that, I mean, for that, I don't think it's a good justification to say, okay, let's reduce all the specs and just bring their compile level to be 11.
I mean, we discussed this already in the past, and the proper justification is, what is the API that you want to use that's higher than 8, lower than 11, that we need on the APIs right now?
Yes. So I agree. I think even for telemetry, we don't need to add any.
Hotel is targeting Java 8, so they're not going to have Java 11 APIs.
Yeah. So in this case, maybe like review spec by spec. So if some spec need to use Java 11 features, and then they bring up their 11. So basically, we don't have the hard requirement that say you must stay on Java 8. So you can use Java 11 if you want to use any Java 11 features, like 9, 10, 11. I think for reactive messaging, they can go ahead to do that.
That's the only thing that I believe on the features from Java 8 to 11, which is the Flow API to use on reactive messaging. Because anything else, I don't see. I mean, all of the other specs are fairly small, and I don't think there is any API. I mean, yeah, there are like some helper methods here and there, but you can live without them. It's not like, and it's mostly on the TCK side of things. Most APIs are just interfaces, so.
Yeah.
What that would mean is that reactive messaging, which I think we talked about earlier, is, maybe targeting MicroProfile 6, is that it really can't if everything else is 8.
I don't think it will go to the MicroProfile 6. Like again, it's kind of review the standalone ones. Liberty does not support the latest reactive messaging because we don't have many requests.
But one thing that we might want to start thinking about now, so what this means is MicroProfile 7, let's say July of 23, is going to be supporting Jakarta 10.
Yeah.
Or later, right? 10.x or whatever. Then we might want to start asking ourselves, do we want to consider adding APIs that do align with new language features, right? So something to think about, nothing to decide on.
Yeah,
Would
I think that's
lives
a good
better?
point. Yeah.
Probably the big time that's going to be important is when you hit 17, and then you can begin to exploit interesting things. There's not a super lot of interesting stuff in 11.
Right. Especially with starting to hit records and strings.
Exactly. Yeah. Records. I mean, records probably the big external thing the API can exploit. Other things are more internal to implementations, but
right.
Records are big.
Yeah. So even in the Jakarta EE10, this kind of they just bring as high as Java 11. But nothing stop us to say go beyond. We say, okay, in the 2023, we want to change our compilation level to be Java 17. Okay, with that, it's bottom of the hour. Let's end with this. We pretty much discuss the July release. And then work with the individual specs and to finalize their decision about whether they want to put any update. Thank you very much for your contribution, and see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.